Welcome to another episode of Growth Hacker TV. I'm Bronson Taylor, and today I have Piyanka Jain with us. Piyanka, thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Piyanka, you are the founder of A-Ring, a management consulting company focused on analytics, and you have multiple Fortune 100 clients, companies like Google, Apple, Microsoft, and you're the author of the upcoming book, Behind Every Good Decision, an actionable guide to data-driven decision-making through business analytics. So basically, you sound like the perfect guest to have on Growth Hacker TV because everything you do is about data and analytics, isn't it?
You make me sound so good. Thank you.
Hey, you're the one doing all this stuff, not me. All right, let's start by diving into your consulting work with A-Ring. Because when you get to consult with Fortune 100 clients and a lot of other companies, you get to see just a lot of data and business intelligence, and you just have more to kind of experience to pull from. So I want to kind of get inside of what you help these companies actually figure out and do. So first, do you have kind of a basic philosophy concerning data and analytics that you're trying to get into the minds of these companies? Do you have kind of a set of core beliefs that you're trying to get them on board with?
Right. And we do. I think one of the big things for us is that, and it's also, at the same time, we're doing a lot of, what should I say, evangelism around analytics because it's so overhyped, big data and so on and so forth. There is a lot of misconception here. So our work is both evangelizing and educating as well as driving impact for our client. And some of the things, the way we do it is by kind of bringing home some of the true concepts versus, here's something cool to do, big data and predictive analytics, and you need to get Hadoop cluster and so on. We try to nail down what is really true. In this world of business, still, the impact is coming from processes or following step-by-step method to drive decisions, to drive impact, not necessarily using cool technology and cool algorithms as it appears. For most people who are outside of it, like, oh, it's all about cool technology and cool algorithms. It is actually not. It's actually about, it is about those things. It does leverage cool technology and cool algorithm, but more than anything else, it is about how do you follow a step-by-step method, a recipe of sorts to drive decision, and how do you ask good questions of data? Because it is not data doesn't speak, it really does not speak, it only responds. And so how can you really ask good intelligent questions of your data? How can you lay out a good analytics agenda to get the questions you want to answered?
Yeah, I love that quote. Data doesn't speak, it only responds. I think we already have the quote of the episode right there. I love that. So you're saying, you're not so much about the hype of big data. You're not so much about Hadoop or this new technology. It's more, what's the process to learn? So let me ask you, kind of what is the process? I mean, what is the recipe that you said? What is that step-by-step method that when a corporation comes to you, you say, okay, this is the process to really utilize business intelligence? What does that look like?
Right. So there are two big frameworks that we talk about and that we help our clients with. One of the first one is called 3 key questions. In fact, if your audience and listeners are interested, they can download most of what I'm talking about as white papers on our website on aring.com. So the first framework is 3 key questions, and it's a framework for laying out an optimal agenda. What kind of questions you should be asking your data? Let's say you are a $50 million 5-year running, not call it startup, but transforms from startup, but yet not an enterprise. What kind of questions you should be asking? Let's say you have a base of 100,000 customers, and a lot of their transaction. What kind of questions you should be asking? And for that, we have 3 key questions, which essentially is a framework of driving from your big goal. Let's say growth is your big goal for this year. Or maybe it's revenue. How do you go from the goal out there to really understanding what drives those big things that you're driving for? And then what inside, what are the dynamics of your business so that you understand your business, you can move those levers and essentially drive that impact. So there's that 3 key questions. The other one we have is called BADR. And BADR is an acronym, BADIR, stands for the 5 steps that you follow to get insights and drive impact from data. And so it starts from business question, B for business question, understand the question, lay out a plan. That's the second step, analysis plan. Then only collect relevant data, not big data, just a subset of the data. Then drive insights, get insights, use proper methodology, and make recommendations. And all throughout, there are two tracks in this. There is the blue track, which is the algorithmic track, right? There's the whole data science, the cool stuff. And then there's a green track. How do decisions get made? How do you communicate? What are stakeholders doing? How do you need to influence? What handshakes do you need to make? So both the tracks go parallel through these 5 steps for you to really drive impact in the organization from the insights that you get. So these are the two that we use.
Yeah, I like both those a lot. And they both start with questions. One framework is all questions, and the other one, it begins with the B, business questions. In your experience, it must be that questions at the very beginning really change the whole discussion. It changes everything. If you ask the right questions, you probably get to the right spot. You ask the wrong questions, you probably get to the right spot. Is that why you guys do that?
That's exactly right. It's like let's say you were a captain of a ship, and you were basically a treasure hunter, and you have a crew. And basically, I come around and I'm an investor, and I say, hey, Bronson, if you can help me find this plate fleet which sunk in 1857. There was a lot of big ruby and things from Thailand. If you can help me find that, I'll fund your entire trip, and here's the prize dollar for you, right? So I've given you a very, very specific aim, a very, very specific goal. There are 2 ways to approach it, broadly speaking. One way is you can set up like Columbus, right? You can say, well, all right, cool, crew, let's get on board, let's start sailing. And you just dive into Pacific Ocean, or get onto your boat and go into Pacific Ocean, and you start looking for that plate fleet, sunken treasure. How likely are you to find that?
Not very.
Not very. Or you can be like Sherlock Holmes, and you say, oh, okay, what were the trade routes? Where did that likely sink? When was it last seen? What are the different heights of the ocean? So on and so forth. You can be like Sherlock Holmes, nail down exactly, because you're looking for plate feet, you nail down exactly, top 5 locations you're most likely to find. Then you basically send your submarines or your deep sea diver out there, right? How likely are you to find your gold then?
Yeah, much more likely.
Much more likely, and if you don't find it, you'll fail fast too, right? So that's the difference. Analytics is the Sherlock Holmes approach, saying, if this is the question, then this is my approach. Let's say the question was, go find this killer whale. It's a completely different, you were going to look for it in a different place. But if you were Columbus, you're going to do the same process, right? So your goal, your question guides you to what steps you take.
Yeah, I like that example a lot. Do any questions come to mind as kind of quintessential, these are really good questions that actually apply to business? Or is there questions you can say, these are really bad questions? So what's the kind of question that you just feel like, you're asking the wrong thing?
In general, anything which is nice to have, which is not actionable, anything which you say, it would be nice to know, what do our customers on an average spend? Let's say that's a question. And if I were to ask you, oh, okay, and what are you going to do about it? If you don't have an answer to that, that's a really bad question.
Gotcha.
So if it's not actionable to begin with, it's not something you can take action on, then it's not well thought through. Now, if you were to answer the question, you said, well, depending on the average price, I may bundle it with, I may do some partnership with another channel to see, what makes sense. Okay, now we're talking business, right? You're going to do something about it. So in general, that's the rule. Each business, let's say two gaming companies, both roughly $50 to $100 million size, kind of in the same space, still will have their different, still can have their very different agenda, analytics agenda, still very different set of questions. Why? Because they may have a different philosophy. They may have a different, on one end, they may, one of the companies may have 1% paying base. Another company may be 100% paying base, right? Nobody can play unless you at least put $5 or something, right? All of that, just that one thing will completely change the dynamics of the business, right? So the questions you will ask, you're the same 2 gaming companies, similar customer base, still your analytics agenda will be completely different. So it's not one question is right or wrong. It's about what is the context and what's your business, and where are you going with that.
Yeah, and one of the things it seems like I also hear you saying is in your frameworks you focus a lot. So it's not big data, it's relevant data to whatever we're trying to do. It's not
Exactly.
let's find the answer to every fun question. It's let's ask a few right questions and find the answers to those if there's
Right?
something we're going to do about it. So really
Right?
it seems like a lot of what you probably do is give people permission to ignore a lot of things in the world so they can focus on the few things that matter. Is that right?
So rightly said. So rightly said. Yeah,
Yeah, no, it seems
exactly.
like that. Let me ask you this. I know you don't focus on the technology, so this may be a short answer. We'll see. Is there any kind of core sets of technology that you do just always install? That you go into a company and say, okay, you need this, you need this, you need that? Or is it really just kind of, it's so different and it's not really that meaningful to you?
Yeah, no, so these days, I mean, from where we have come from, 15 years, 20 years ago, when you look at the BI technology you had,
Hmm.
you would submit. I'm talking about the graphical user interface,
Sure.
where you would just like, if you think about business object 10 years ago or even before, you would cut and slice the data and then you would submit it, and then it'll take forever for you to for the query to run, and
Hmm.
then you're waiting, maybe you'll come the next day or something. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but
Hmm.
the point being, the technology that time was not that cool. It was not up to par. It was not that user friendly. Now, technology, most whatever BI tool you have, whatever stack you have, as long as it's designed well, you've thought through the information architecture well, it should be user friendly. It should return the queries quickly. It should be, you should be able to get the data you want quickly out of
Hmm.
that. It should be intuitive. It should be available in all the channels, all the mobile and your PC and so on and so forth. All of those are table stakes now. So to us, really, it doesn't matter. When we go into the organization, it doesn't matter what kind of BI tool they're using, what kind of underneath stack they're using. They can be using Oracle database, they can be using SAP, they can be using Teradata. On top of that, they can have cubes, aggregated cubes, which are, Pentaho or Tableau, whatever you have. As
Hmm.
long as you've designed it well, it should be very functional, and it should uh, the way to measure its success is is it giving the people who are making decisions, is it giving them access to data easily?
Yeah.
Are they excited about what they have at hand? Or are they saying, oh, we have to wait for another analyst to pull the data for us?
Hmm.
That's a failure of your system, your data architecture and data system.
Yeah.
And it's mostly not about technology. It's not the technology that is failing, because technology is at par, whatever
Hmm.
you're using. It's actually the underlying design that you've done.
Yeah, I think about the acronym BADIR that you gave us earlier, and it seems like as long as the technology eventually gets you to insights and recommendations, the rest doesn't really matter. We can be
It doesn't
agnostic about
matter.
it. As long as we can get to the end of that acronym and end up with insights from these tools, then we're
Yeah,
probably good to
easily.
go.
Easily, and that
Yeah.
too easily. I mean, the point, and I keep saying that because here's another company, another client of ours. I think it's a closer to $10 million organization. And essentially, the head of product has about 20 product managers,
Hmm.
and is it's funny. So the head of product is basically saying, I hire only the product managers who have SQL skills. Oh, okay. All right. So basically, you are basically going to get SQL analysts who have done some product, right? That's what you're going to get,
Yeah.
right? And and maybe for that business it's fine. But the point is that you're narrowing down your scope. And just imagine if you're expecting your product managers to be writing SQL query and getting the data back and then like cleaning it up or whatever else, when do you really expect them to do product stuff?
Yeah.
Right? And so I think be careful about that. If it is not easily accessible, you're expecting people to write SQL query, or no, wait too long, or have extra get extra training
Hmm.
for just that tool. I mean, a little bit training may be needed, but it's so hard to use, and if it's not easy to use, people will not use it. They will
Yeah.
find ways not to use it. So how can you make, if your tools work, it needs to give easy access to
Hmm.
data, and needs to be able to easily visualize, because it's all visual, right?
Yeah.
If I give you a spreadsheet and it has 1,000 columns and 1,000 rows or whatever else, and you look through that and it's not visualized, it's daunting.
Hmm.
It's really daunting.
Yeah.
So you do need tools which have easy access and visualization of data
Yeah.
underneath.
Now let me ask you this. You work with a lot of big companies. Would your advice to a small company be different than the advice you give to larger companies? Are the things you're teaching universal laws, or do startups have a different set of rules because of their unique situation? How do you see that in terms of analytics and business intelligence?
That's a great question, Ronson. I think at the fundamental level, the universal laws apply. Badar stands, three key question stands. I think as applied to the world, what I see from our two sets of clients, what I see with startups is they are running very fast. A lot of them in the name of data and analytics. If we meet them and they're already doing data and analytics, are doing too much, too fast, not learning, not pausing, not following through the process. In the name of we are agile, we don't do process. Throughout the process, they are not learning. And it's true for a smaller organization. They go from 100 to 200 very quickly, right? They can do 100x growth very quickly. Their customer base can change, so they need to learn fast, but they need to learn systematically. And that's one of the challenges I see with smaller organizations, that they are not learning in a systematic way which can sustain them. They're often moving too fast and often not clear about what they're learning. Some of them are doing too much testing, especially the Silicon Valley high-tech companies are all about A/B testing, and they're just doing too much testing. It's crazy. It seriously is, and it's basically, and they're going with weak hypothesis. A lot of them, they're not gaining much value out of it. So that's one side of it. For the Fortune 100 companies, the advice is, tactically the advice is completely different. Move faster. Don't wait on to your QBR. Yeah, they're moving too slow, and they are somewhat limited by, I have to wait for my question to get prioritized in the next QBR, for it to get answered, for me to take action in the next quarter, and it's like you're losing opportunity. Another $50 million or smaller startup is eating your lunch, right? If you don't move fast. There are lots of examples, even in gaming company scenario that we early talked about. There are smaller organizations which have eaten some big companies' lunch, right? So I think the fundamentals remain the same, but it is where they are, what their natural constraints are.
Yeah, so it's the same frameworks, the same philosophy. Startups need to move slower. Big companies need to move faster.
Yeah, slower, systematic. I should say you can move fast. Just move through systematic.
No, that's good. I like the way you put that. That's great. Okay, so in your experience, you've got to go into these companies. You really implement kind of the data and analytics, mindset and tools, and you're really walking them through that process. What have been some of the biggest wins, some of the biggest successes that you've seen that you can say, this really is attributable because of our work here, or because of their work with analytics or something? Give us some kind of inspiration so we feel the need to go back and really get some of this stuff on straight.
Right. There are lots of stories out there, and I can also talk about. So, for example, there's a retailer software retailer that we worked with, and they are focused on creative professionals, and essentially they have a product, and one of the very popular products, and they market it to their base. Let's say their base is X. And over the years they would release version 8.0, 9.0, 10.0, and they're kind of basically selling it to the same base. They have some ways of doing trial of the product to grow the base, but it grows in a step function. So we engaged with them, and we essentially they have other products, and they had a huge, I think close to 50 million plus. Huge database of people who were not related to this particular product that we were talking about, but they had done something with the company, some trial or some event participation or something like that, and it was completely left untapped. So what we did was we took that entire database and we used predictive analytics, and we essentially scored that entire database with a propensity to buy this product, with a lookalike modeling.
Sure.
And essentially it turned out that then we tested with a campaign to that database which we had scored, and so the top 30%, we mailed to top 30% there, and response rate was comparable to their own base. So that was tremendous. I mean, you don't imagine a base which has never done anything with you, right? Anything with this product. They had an almost comparable response rate to their base, and they increased their marketable universe by 4 times. So just imagine the revenue impact that you can have immediately, and for all the future, because that basically means you have your core base, and now you have this base which you have. Your marketable universe has become 4 times. So that's one story. We have many stories. In fact, we share a lot of these in the book which is coming out, Behind Every Good Decision, and I think it's coming out either in September or October. So folks can look for it. We share a lot of those stories. But if these are some personal stories. But if you look at the domain out there, I mean, a lot of us use LinkedIn, and if you just see LinkedIn, right? They keep adding new. You can call it products, but like, let's say you do searches, right? And you do searches and you say, oh, okay, how do you want to filter? Do you want to filter by the job seniority, whatever else? They've been adding, if you remember LinkedIn, I don't know, 5 years ago, or some, initially when it started, it was a very simple form. You had first name, last name, job profile, company, and few other things, right? Now, if you see all those things which have been added, and they keep, all that is coming from analytics. And these are simple analytics. It's not like they necessarily are using, advanced algorithms and predictive analytics. These are simple business analytics. You look at Amazon. If you go shop out there and it says people who have viewed this product have also viewed these other 4 products or whatever else. Or this percentage have essentially bought this product, right? All this is simple analytics. But imagine that itself. I mean, I don't work for Amazon, so I don't have those numbers. But I can imagine
it's
that itself. that little app, which is simple analytics, saying, okay, it's a simple bivariate, right? Of the people who bought this, how many? What else? Of the people who've seen this, what else they have done, right? If they have converted, you're just showing that number. And that is bound to increase your conversion X%. I don't know what that percentage is, but So there are lots of these. I mean, we use analytics in our daily life. We are using it all the time, or we are interfacing with it all the time. When you see some offers in mail, Kohl's. I don't know if you get like
my wife
Kohl's
does.
Kohl's is one of those retailers. They have figured out their couponing system, right? They're 10%, 15%, 20%, 30%. They have a cyclic way of getting their customer base to their shop, right? It's just unbelievable what they have been able to do. And so we are we are experiencing it on the other side, because when you receive 30%, you wait for the 30%, and you go to shop at Kohl's only when you get your 30%, right?
Yeah.
What have they done? They have essentially said, we don't care about seasonality. We will get the customers we want to come to our shop when we want them. Yeah. Because they can essentially send that 30% whenever they feel like. And so they have divided their customer base, and they have seen who responds and who doesn't respond. And to those who respond, they have figured out when they should get a cyclic way of getting them 30%.
Yeah.
I mean, amazing. Just and simple. It's not like they've used some really cool, advanced algorithms here. These are simple stuff. So it's everywhere.
Those are great examples, absolutely. And those are examples we can learn from because they're not so far out of reach. It seems like hearing you talk about kind of your philosophy on all this stuff, there's a lot of soft skills involved and a lot of hard skills involved. Yeah. In the soft skills, there's asking the right question, getting insights. But the hard skills are there too. Knowing how to build a lookalike audience, knowing how to score an audience, so that that creative professional group, knowing which ones might also buy this other thing. What does that mean practically? Does that mean that to do this well, you have to be left-brained and right-brained, or does it just mean that the team as a whole needs some left-brainers and some right-brainers?
That's a great question, and I may take it in a different direction than you probably were going. So let me answer your question specifically, and then I want to caveat it because it may leave the audience thinking something different than what I'd intended to. So however way you do it, not everybody is a Superman. So not everybody would have a very well-balanced right and left, but those who do tend to do very well in analytics. So that is true. Because there is a green track, there is a blue track. Those who are able to influence and communicate effectively, make the right handshake, and follow a process and do analytics, they tend to do well in analytics. But all of this is learnable. So at the bottom of all this, this is all recipe. If you can follow a recipe, if you can, if today I were to say, do you know how to make fettuccine? If you've made it before, you're like, yeah, I do. And if you haven't, let's say, assume you haven't made it, you're like, okay, give me a recipe and I can try, right? The first time you make fettuccine, it will be perhaps okay. And depending on your cooking skills, I don't know that.
They're very small.
They're very small. So, first time, okay. Second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time, you'll get really good, right? Because you're following a standard set recipe. It's not like it's not rocket science. So analytics is like that, or analytics as applied to business, what I call business analytics, is like that. Both the blue track, which is the data science track, and the decision science track is learnable. So for the statisticians in the audience, those who have done, those who can do regression in their sleep, they often need to learn the green track. How to communicate their findings, how to influence, how to bring stakeholders together. And those of us, especially product managers, marketing managers, operation managers, we're often good on the green track, right? We've done this many times. In fact, we've been successful only because we know how to communicate, we know how to get people together with us, build our product, the app that we want, right? So we're good with that, but we don't have necessarily the skills. But that skill doesn't necessarily need, okay, so let me backtrack. 80% of the business problem can be solved by very simple methods, simple analytics methodologies. They are roughly aggregate analysis, correlation analysis, sizing and estimation is another one of them, and trend analysis. These four are pretty much can solve most of your problem. And this is learnable. This is doable in Excel. If you have access to data in whatever form, and you can, and that tool or Excel, you can get the data in Excel, you can do analysis yourself very easily. The data science track.
Yeah.
So it's learnable, very easily learnable. So it's not like you have to be a statistician to be effectively able to use analytics or to drive decisions based on data. As a product manager, if you're a product manager or a marketing manager or operations manager, whatever have you, and you want to use data to drive insights, you can by just following the recipe.
Yeah.
And this recipe, by the way, is completely outlined in the book, which is coming out.
That's what I was going to ask. So those four data and science things you just mentioned are going to be in the book?
It is all there in the book. It's
okay, because I was just getting ready to ask, where do we
step.
find that information? Because that's what I want to know now is, tell me those four things in a little more detail. So that's awesome. We'll definitely get that book.
Okay, so that's it.
Let's talk about the book a little bit. So it's called Behind Every Good Decision. So tell us about the title. It doesn't sound like a hardcore data analytics book when it's called Behind Every Good Decision. Where did that title come from? What does that mean?
That title came from analytics, from testing. I read a book from Tim Grahel called How to Sell 1,000 Copies of the book or something like that. And in that book, he talks about how to choose a title. And it was timely. I picked up that book right when we were writing this book and last year. And I think his book came out in June sometime, and essentially it's what Tim suggests, and this is what we did was we basically asked all our base, our tribe, as to hey, we are writing this book. What we are trying to do with the book? What would you suggest the title should be? And people sent their request. They sent their request of I think it should be this, that, and all that. So we got in I would say 100+ titles of different permutation. And are you there with me?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And so then we essentially did A/B testing. There is a site called Pickfu, and pickfu.com, and essentially it does, you show to a random audience, A and B, and they choose between the two, and they tell you why. So that's how we came up with, and
cool.
And then we move stuff around to really come up with Behind Every Good Decision. Now, the Behind Every Good Decision won by 3x over the next title, which was suggested by our publisher. So what was suggested by the publisher had analytics in it and kind of like some of those things which you would expect. Hey, it's an analytics book, right? but it won by 4 times. Because at the end of the day, now that we look back, at the end of the day, does anybody care about analytics? Even I don't care
No,
about
they
analytics.
care about good decision making. That's it.
They care about actions
That's
and
what
the
makes our
impact.
business move forward.
Exactly. I really don't care. I mean, you can give me good answer. I mean, if you have a crystal ball, give me the good answer. I don't care how you're getting it. Analytics is one
right.
systematic way of getting it, right?
Uh-huh.
So analytics is your crystal ball, or analytics, if you do it systematically, it is your crystal ball. So that is what it is about. This is about how do organizations make good decisions? How can you, as an entrepreneur, as a startup, or as a product manager, or as a leader, how can you do your part so you can move the business forward? That is what this book is about.
I love the idea of that title, and here's something I actually tell my team sometimes. I tell them, if we can make 100 right decisions in a row, we're going to dominate. Because it's impossible to do that, you can't make 100 right decisions in a row. But just that idea that all this whole thing all business is about, is just one decision after another. And if I can string together enough good decisions, it's going to be hard not to take market share.
Right. And you will make bad decisions, because at the end of the day, it's all hypothesis driven, right? When you're going and looking for that plate fleet treasure, you're putting your bets. You will fail 4 out of 5 times, or you maybe 5 out of 5 times, but you'll fail faster, so that you can say, okay, now that I haven't found my gold, where are the next 5 bets that I can put my dollar and my effort and my time, team and my resources in, right? So it's about failing faster and then succeeding, right? So you will fail, but you'll fail faster.
Absolutely.
So that you don't waste time, and then a year later you realize, okay, I got to sell this business because it doesn't work, right?
Yeah. So who is this book written for? Is it for the CEOs? Is it for founders? Is it for established middle managers? Who should be reading this?
It's essentially for 4 set of client readers. First one of them is middle managers and people in the trenches, right? People who are in their day-to-day are making decisions. They are thinking about, a marketing manager is thinking, I have $100,000 marketing budget. Where should I spend it next? It's for those people who are making decisions on day-to-day, and they have access to data, and they have an opportunity to optimize that. Right, so it's the first, like the middle managers, and so basically who we call business professionals.
Sure.
Then it's for business leaders, people in leadership roles who are managing P&L, who need to figure out, what do I do with my team? How do I actually compete on data? Because everybody's competing on data. How do I do that? It's for them. There's an entire section for them in there. And it also gives them an idea of what is this really about? What is analytics really about? Like you talked about, it's overhyped. It is actually, and they need to really see for what it is, not beyond the hype.
Sure.
Then it is for data scientists and analytics professionals. A lot of them, as I was saying, are good at the blue track, the data science track. They often miss the green track. And I speak at this conference called Predictive Analytics World and e-metrics, and a big percentage of that crowd for Predictive Analytics World is data scientists. And if you ask all of them, and as I've talked to them, I've been talking to them for like last 5 years, and I talk to them and ask them, what's the number one problem that they have? I'm building the best of the model, and nobody gives a shit. That's their biggest problem, right? They don't have necessarily the green skills, green track skills, the decision science skills. They're doing good work, but it's going to waste, because that the whole thing about building alignment with the stakeholders, influencing communication, that's all missing. So they have a lot to learn, and that's what this book will do. And then the fourth set of readers this book is aiming to target is we have actually a university professor which teaches these upcoming professionals, people who are taking courses on. It's for them. For people who like to, I'm coming in, I'm majoring into marketing, I'm majoring into product, and maybe it's a executive program. Or maybe it's an MBA program with a focus on that. It's for them to learn how analytics in the real world, or actually decision making in the real world, I would say. Right?
Better.
How can you use it effectively? So it is for them. So it's a little bit of a wide audience, but we have something for them, for each one of this group.
Yeah, well, it sounds great. I'm going to buy it personally and read it because I want to know those 4 things and how to dive into those a little more. So that's what got my interest. But no, it sounds great, though. Piyanka, this has been a great interview. I have one last question for you. It's a question that I always end with all my guests, which is, what's the best advice you have for any startup that's trying to grow?
Do growth hacking.
There you go.
Systematically. There is a method to this madness. In fact, you and I connected perhaps with that blog which I wrote on Forbes, which has a video component to it. And that's where I'm actually teaching how do you do growth hacking. There's a whole method to the madness. So do growth hacking. If you want to grow, do growth hacking systematically.
Yeah, I like it. Piyanka, thank you so much again for coming on Growth Hacker TV.
Thank you very much for having me.